خپل سکرین په شی باندې کېدای شي چې د پیښور او خواږه علاقو کې د زلزلې سخت جټکې محسوسېږي تاسو دا وخت کېدای شي چې د پیښور او خواږه علاقو کې د زلزلې سختې جټکې روان
A 6.5 magnitude earthquake jolted the Indian subcontinent. The epicenter was in Afghanistan's remote Hindu Kush mountains that lie to the west of the Himalayas. The Himalayan range is considered to be one of the most dangerous seismic zones in the world. Scientists have repeatedly warned that there are high chances of a strong earthquake striking the region, possibly of a magnitude of over 8 on the Richter scale. Now, this is because of the huge amount of energy stored along the fault lines due to the continuous interaction of different tectonic plates. And this energy can only be released in the form of massive earthquakes. The recent quake was just a reminder of the vulnerabilities of the Himalayan region. The big question now is, how prepared are we to tackle a severe earthquake? Hello and welcome. I'm Shivan and you are watching Inside South Asia. The International Monetary Fund has finally cleared the desperately needed $2.9 billion bailout package for Sri Lanka. But is the country's nightmare really over? Can economic aid be the silver bullet to bridge a yawning gap between public austerity measures and the state of the Sri Lankan economic mess?
To think Sri Lankans have had virtually nothing to celebrate this last year or so. The IMF's bailout package nod comes as a breather in more ways than one, at least the beginning of the end of the mayhem created by economic mismanagement and COVID-19. The Sri Lankan rupee and bonds were bullish. A nation that had tipped into its worst financial crisis in decades sees hope of pulling itself back from the brink.
Sri Lanka is no longer a bankrupt nation, therefore we can restart normal transactions.
$2.9 billion, that's what's been cleared for Sri Lanka by the IMF Executive Board. The first tranche is $330 million. What's more important though is the approval catalyzing additional external support. Some $3.75 billion from the World Bank, Asian Development Bank and other lenders. The President's office estimated access to some $7.5 billion in overall funding. The big question, will the IMF bailout be the silver bullet to end the Emerald Isles woes?
While the IMF agreement might give some confidence to the markets, in terms of ordinary people's lives, it makes no difference. In many parts of the country, people are actually only eating 1 or 2 meals a day. So relief to the people is the most important thing. And so in that sense, the IMF agreement really has not solved their problems.
How soon then before the benefits are felt on the ground, especially for people squeezed by soaring cost of living, high income tax rates and a 66% rise in power tariffs?
It must be spent to solve the country's problems. If they reduce the price of fuel and food items and give people some relief, then it's good.
IMF doesn't mean that they are going to do the reforms. They will only provide the financial assistance. If our policymakers, if some of our key stakeholders are so reluctant to do the reforms, probably there will be an 18th or a 19th time also for the IMF. This is the, we have gone 16 times, so this is the 17th time. And if we, the main challenge would be the politicians and the policymakers so backward looking in terms of reforms even after the crisis broke out.
More than 1 year it's been of queues and power cuts extending to public anger and protest. The current IMF bailout is the 17th for Sri Lanka and the third since its decades-old civil war ended in 2009. But experts warn that the worst is far from over. The gap between people's welfare and strong austerity and economics remains a big one.
The targets set by the IMF, such as a primary budget surplus. A primary budget surplus means that our revenue should be higher than our expenditure of the government. By next year, by 2024, impossible. This is Sri Lanka's 17th IMF agreement. And unless there is much more space given to Sri Lanka to be able to rebuild our economy while giving relief to the people, we might be again going to another IMF agreement. We might even default again on our debt.
The question rings again, is Sri Lanka's nightmare really over? Shaking off relapse fears remains distant yet. The IMF bailout package remains but a silver lining on a still dark cloud.
Let's shift our focus now to Afghanistan, where more than 1 million girls have been barred from going to school. The highest level of education an Afghan girl can now hope to attain is 6th grade. They now fear for their future as well. Watch this report.
These images were taken in a secondary school in Kabul. With hardly any students, Afghanistan's schools reopened for the new academic year. No classes were held as students were unaware of the start of the school. A year ago, after signaling that they would open schools for all students, Taliban authorities made a U-turn, leaving many girls who had turned up for their high school classes in tears and sparking global condemnation. Since then, primary schools for girls have stayed open, but most high schools have been closed, and the Taliban barred female students from university in December. The UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, has renewed calls for teenage girls to rejoin the classroom, but hundreds of thousands of teenage girls remain barred from attending class. Afghanistan is the only country in the world where girls are prohibited from going to secondary school. Taliban authorities have imposed an austere interpretation of Islam since storming to power in August 2021 after the withdrawal of the US-led foreign forces. This is Mohammad Rahimi, who is helping his sister to study at home.
It's very hard as my brother and I used to go to school together daily. But now he goes alone. I am forced to see him go to school while girls like me cannot go to study. The boys get to study daily, but we can't.
I feel disappointed and hopeless that my sisters cannot be of any use to society in the future or cannot build their own future. I tried my best to provide them an opportunity to study at home, but obviously, the opportunity that is available outside cannot be provided at home.
But some girls are finding hope in a different kind of institution, the madrasas.
Well, I live in the hope that someday schools might reopen and maybe I make some progress in my education. I want to become more knowledgeable, but I will never lose hope. I always have hope. If it isn't through schools, then maybe through madrasas, maybe through some other courses. At least we have telephones and the internet which are helping us.
The madrasa cannot help me in becoming a doctor. It can only happen if I get to the school. Unfortunately, that's not an option. At least we have access to a madrasa. It's good for increasing our religious knowledge.
The number of Islamic schools has grown across Afghanistan since the Taliban takeover, with teenage girls increasingly attending madrasas after they were banned from secondary schools. Female education, or rather the lack of it, lies at the heart of the Taliban administration's standoff with the international community. But clearly, the Taliban are hell-bent on systematically erasing women from public life. And it begins with denying them the right to education.
The first cross-border energy pipeline between India and Bangladesh has been inaugurated. We're talking about the Friendship Pipeline. So why is this project significant for both countries? And what are its benefits?
इस पाइपलाइन से उत्तरी बांग्लादेश के विभिन्न जिलों को 1 मिलियन मैट्रिक टन हाई स्पीड डीजल की आपूर्ति की जा सकेगी। पाइपलाइन के द्वारा सप्लाई से खर्च तो घटेगा ही, इस सप्लाई का कार्बन फुटप्रिंट भी कम होगा। 1 मिलियन मैट्रिक टन।
An energy pipeline between Bangladesh and India, the first of its kind between the two nations. On the 18th of March, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his counterpart from Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, virtually inaugurated the India-Bangladesh Friendship Pipeline. Let's tell you more about this cross-border oil pipeline. The pipeline will bring diesel from a refinery depot in the Indian city of Siliguri to Parbatipur in northern Bangladesh. The 131.5-kilometer long pipeline will cover about 126.57 kilometers in Bangladesh. The remaining 5 kilometers lie in India. With an aim to reduce energy costs and carbon footprint, the operation of the India-Bangladesh Friendship Pipeline will further enhance cooperation in energy security between the two countries.
ভারত-বাংলাদেশ ফ্রেন্ডশিপ পাইপলাইন চালুর ফলে বাংলাদেশের জনগণ নানাভাবে উপকৃত হবে। রাশিয়া ইউক্রেন যুদ্ধের কারণে যখন বিশ্বের অনেক দেশ জ্বালানি সংকটের মুখোমুখি, তখন এই পাইপলাইনটি আমাদের জনগণের জ্বালানি নিরাপত্তা নিশ্চিত করার ক্ষেত্রে।
So who is financing the Friendship Pipeline? Both countries have been involved in a joint study on the economic partnership, which has been in discussions between the two neighbors for many years. Bangladesh had sought loans from global agencies including the International Monetary Fund, prompted by its dwindling foreign exchange reserves caused by rising import bills. The construction began back in 2018. The pipeline has been built at an estimated cost of rupees 377 crores or about $45 million, with the Indian government bearing approximately about $35 million for laying the portion on the Bangladesh side as grant assistance. Before this, in 2013, the first cross-border power connection between the two countries was set up. Bangladesh is one of India's leading trading partners in South Asia. According to data from the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Bangladesh is now the fourth largest destination for Indian exports globally, with a value of about $16 billion. Just last year, the commercial run of the third inter-country passenger train Mithali Express was inaugurated between West Bengal's New Jalpaiguri and Dhaka. India has extended nearly $9.5 billion to Bangladesh in preferential loans in recent years and has taken up several connectivity projects. The United Nations, which classifies Bangladesh among the least developed countries, said in 2021 that it was expected to make enough progress towards its development goals to reach the developing nation status by 2026. This friendship pipeline is just one step for Bangladesh towards realizing that goal.
Now, you may have seen or participated in a regular marathon race, but have you ever thought of running on snow with your canine companion? Well, that's a race with a twist, isn't it? And up next, we bring you India's first dog race, which was held at an altitude of 11,000 feet in the Lahaul Valley of Himachal Pradesh. Let's watch this furry tale.
Dogs naturally love snow. It's like their natural playground, and we seldom get a chance to run in snow along with our best friends. So this event is going to give you that chance. Today organized India's first snow dog race called Snowtails, and probably it is also the world's highest snow dog race. I'm not aware of any other snow dog race happening in the country. The original plan in mind was to keep a 5-kilometer route, but then when we had the recce runs with the dogs, it was difficult to run in deep snow even at 450-100 meters. So the route was chosen due to its natural beauty, its tourism quotient.
Expectation is to have fun, and this will be his first time on the snow. So I hope he enjoys it, and it's a very welcome move, I would say. It will make the owners come closer to their pets. And yes, he also got a chance to come out of home after a long, because we just keep him in the nearby area only. So it was a good tour for him.
I'm just putting some paw butter on the dog's paws because they're not used to the snow. So I'll just stop them from drying out.
I think it will give you a free and open space to run with your dogs, give them a chance to experience the snow if they don't get there. And I hope they do this every year. I think this is the first year they're doing it.
इसका मेन रीज़न है वो है कि थोड़ा सा अवेयरनेस लाना इस वैली में एनिमल्स के प्रति, क्योंकि बर्फ़ वाला एरिया है, यहाँ पर हर साल फीमेल्स बच्चे देती हैं, उनको फिर कोई देखने वाला होता नहीं है, तो हम उनको ऑपरेट कर पाएँ। और हम चाहेंगे कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोग इससे जुड़ें, क्योंकि पेट्स भी बहुत इंजॉय कर रहे हैं। आप देख पा रहे हैं कितना एक सो के यहाँ पर भागना चाह रहे हैं।
ऐसे इवेंट होते रहने चाहिए डॉग के साथ। पहली बार भागने में काफ़ी अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस मिला और काफ़ी इनके साथ दौड़ने में काफ़ी खुशी हुई हमको, इनको भी खुशी हुई, स्नो पे इनको भी काफ़ी खुशी हुई दौड़ने पे।
She's only 7 months old, and she was rescued as a 3-month-old puppy at Manali Street. She had to have her eye removed.
जब भी डॉग हमने रेस्क्यू किया था, इसको स्किन प्रॉब्लम था, इसकी स्किन में एक ही बाल नहीं था, तो हमारे पास रहा काफ़ी 1-2 साल ये कि हमने इसकी मेडिसिन वगैरह की, तो अभी ठीक है। तो इसको हम लोग वॉक में ले जाते थे, फिर धीरे धीरे इसको इंटरेस्ट आया, फिर इसी कारण इसने आज इसी रेस में हिस्सा लिया।
Ria, and she's from Manali Street. And she looked very happy when she was running here.
Looks like a ton of fun, and you can bet if I had a pupper at home, I would have been up there at 11,000 feet taking part in that race. Well, that's all we have on the show for you this week. As we wrap up the show, we leave you with some amazing widget from South Asia as the region immerses itself in the festivity of Ramadan. Goodbye for now.